setup? Because it seems like they have one of those setups where it's just by the press of a button. And I know they both basically have like home studios, but like by the press of a button, boom, they're live, and it's like the whole production is just ready to go. You know?
Yeah, I want to say that like folks have these like they do have like the sort of like TV switchers. So it's like not like the Rode Procaster, but something a bit more like intense. So I think a lot of folks who like kept up with the streaming have like advanced their stack. I do know that Coding Garden, like he's their ones and twos and behind the scenes of like doing the production for a lot of the stuff. So yeah, that's part of why Coding Garden also joined Century. But yeah, I think it helps to have like probably a producer in the background. Make it slightly easier.
Yeah. He had some of the, I really loved his whole setup, the Coding Garden stuff. And he really like was doing a lot of this even before probably the Primeagen was streaming, before, I don't know.
Yeah, we're live on Twitch.
We're live. We're doing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the so I'm just gonna look at the links in this
yeah, totally. Just don't dox yourself.
Oh yeah, we're live.
We're there.
Excellent. But man, should we just like reset? I felt like I had such an intro for this, but I was like, hey John, you like LLMs, right?
I do like LLMs. Sometimes. Do you like LLMs?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, folks, you like missed all our wrap up. But basically, there's a vintage LLM, and it is trained on pre-1930 data. It's all on public domain stuff. So anything that's not Disney is available to this LLM. And the caveat is like it can write Python, but you have to teach it Python. And you have to like provide it books. And so the joke that we ended up getting to is like the Seth Rogen thing, which is, man, I felt like I had this all set up perfectly. And then now I'm just like reiterating.
It was a good setup
with no punchlines, but yeah.
We have to tell the joke the second time.
Yeah.
People just walking in.
So like you're basically trading Seth Rogen on how the world works in modern age Brooklyn. And that is vintage LLM.
Yeah. That's amazing. I want to know how it like names things. Like, does it do like a very like transatlantic, like, I don't know, the Heisenberg variable?
Oh yeah. Something? Honestly, I don't know if it does have voice. I imagine it's a model, so you can attach it to like a DeepGram or like
a model or something.
Yeah. So it looks like you could pass it to through Ollama, perhaps. Or Llama CPP. And then if you have like a service that leverages those tools, then you probably can have it talk. I imagine it doesn't have a voice because you'd have to also train a voice in addition to it to read it. But I'd be curious if like 11 Labs could like provide you like a pre-war era voice.
Interesting. Yeah. They would probably have to go synthetically generate a bunch of data and then train on that synthetic data. This actually gets into the weird world of like how good synthetic data sets can be. Which typically is bad. So
yeah, which is why you should like capture your live data and throw that in the cloud and then train on that instead.
Exactly.
Production.
Oh, and this was my joke that, you know, that somebody is going to do with this, you know, like they did with Caveman AI or whatever that thing was, that was mostly a joke, and then people realized, wait, this like saves me tokens. Somebody's gonna like figure out a real use case for this, and then there's gonna be like a whole YC company just on, you know, vintage.ai or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I wonder how many. I think it's like 30 or 28 parameters. How many parameters are in this thing? Because like if you can run this local on your own hardware, like for something that doesn't quite know the world, like pre-1930 stuff, like I'd be curious. I'd actually click through actually a proper link. The case of Talkie. Oh, 13 billion.
13 billion.
Yeah. So not bad. I mean, you could run this on a MacBook with like 64 gigs or Mac Mini.
Pretty small. Yeah. Interesting.
I would love to hook this up to that. Like, I don't have time for this, but hook it up to like a Telegram or something, like something Telegram like, where I'm just like getting messages back and forth printed on receipt tape.
Yeah. Or an OpenClaw that has access to, some sort of like to send you letters or something. I don't know. Could like write you literal notes to send away.
Yeah, you say it out loud, and then there'll be a YC company that's like handwritten letters from your vintage LLM, and it's honestly, I wouldn't mind a nice little handwritten letter and like, hey, thanks so much for like reviewing that PR and getting it merged, like fan mail,
like fan mail. Yeah. Well, this is basically how OnlyFans works. I don't know if you know this, but
oh really? I please enlighten me. I have no idea. Like they get fan mail.
It's a weird business, Brian. That's what I will say is that the human models.
Thanks for clarifying.
There's a whole like chat feature, and it's basically just bots like that. Desperate men are talking to, not actual people. But it seems like you're actually talking to the person on the app, and I think that's how they make most of the money. Is then they're like, oh, buy my $5 a month. I don't know. I read some article about this. I don't use it, so that's why I know about it.
Okay. Well, also thanks for clarifying. But also moving along, so this was actually this was to be a palate cleanser for the next 3 reads I have.
Yeah. This is like the Howard Stern of open source software shows.
We're getting there.
Let's not be that. Yeah.
I got to get the soundboard turned on. That's for next time.
This is the fart noise one. Just GitHub is down.
Yeah. Speaking of which, GitHub is down bad. Mitchell is leaving. Oh, 2 million views. That's amazing. Mitchell's leaving GitHub, which actually, as of today, April 30th, is Ghosty still on?
Oh, on GitHub.
Did I spell it wrong?
TTY. Yeah.
I always do this too as well. I wanted to have 2 T's. I imagine that he's just going to mirror it. So he might use a different service and keep GitHub going.
Yeah.
But maybe the issues get turned off. Open yesterday.
I have a very spicy take here, and I feel somewhat vindicated in this spicy take by everything Mitchell seems to be doing. I said this maybe a month ago. I think he's building a GitHub competitor, or he's going to build something on top of Jiu-Jitsu, or I think he wants to take a bite out of this market, or maybe one of the companies he's investing in, or heck, maybe even Vercel, which he now sits on the board of. It seems almost a little too convenient that this narrative is all coming together all at once.
Yeah, I mean, he is very active on the X, and I mean, there's definitely a narrative that could be true. So I won't buy into the conspiracy theory, but also I'm here for the ride as well. But yeah, I mean, I think for the way he's positioned himself to like, he's a user number 12,199. I think I'm like 524,000.
Wow.
No, it might be 5 million. 5.2 million is like somewhere. That's where my number is. But yeah, I'm way up there. Like I started GitHub like 2012. I was pretty late to the party. But what I'm getting at is like, he's been at GitHub almost since the beginning. Obviously wants to see the things succeed. There's like actually a new tweet that I just retweeted. Everyone's like promoting Kyle Daigle as a.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Yeah, friend of the show, Kyle, COO at GitHub, right?
Yeah, COO GitHub, so Chief Operating Officer. Sam Lambert, actually, if those folks didn't know, Sam actually used to work at GitHub as well. He worked alongside of Kyle, ecosystem team. Sam shipped GitHub Actions and a few other things. And then now is working at PlanetScale. But he came up with the idea of like Kyle Daigle should be CEO. I honestly am surprised that just knowing him personally, surprised that Kyle's not the CEO. Like he didn't kind of step in once Thomas stepped out. Also, like Kyle was historical record, like in like Inside Baseball. Kyle was the chief of staff to Nat Friedman as well for a good amount of time toward Nat's tenure. And then Kyle peeled off to do the chief operating officer stuff after he kind of like job was done and Thomas took over. So yeah, it would make a lot of sense that, and also another thing that I would say is Kyle was also very early GitHub employee, like early turn of the like 2010s. He had joined to specifically work on GitHub Enterprise. I noticed because I interviewed Kyle on my other podcast, Jamstack Radio,
right,
and that's where I got to know Kyle. And then Kyle's the reason that I worked at GitHub because he invited me to work on the team and interview. So I'm a big fan of Kyle. I retweeted it. I liked it. It seems like everyone else is yes to Kyle. Ryan Nystrom, who's at Notion, previously built the GitHub mobile app. Sorry, this is like a lot of inside baseball, but yeah, everyone who's kind of been around just for Zell, also at a moment worked at GitHub on Actions. Yeah, would make a lot of sense.
This is either Kyle's biggest nightmare or dreams coming true.
Yeah, it could make like a super awkward team meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, like, Kyle, so Kyle,
yeah. So who's usurping who here? But no, 100% +1. I haven't interacted with Kyle too much, mostly at the end of the Opus House days. But yeah, he would be great, I think, stepping in this role, especially since he has kind of carried the mantle of the vibe, and he's been one of the few people, I think, with a reasonable sound voice, in the zeitgeist. And I don't know if X is a great place to consume the zeitgeist, but he at least engages and tells people like, hey, like there's a lot going on behind the scenes that I think is honestly a little unfair. That's one of my other hot takes, is that the absolute scale that they're operating at is kind of insane. Like the hundreds of millions of users that they have, and then the like many millions and millions of requests that all those users are doing every day. So this graph exactly, where within the span of just a few years, having to then scale from hyperscale to hyperscale is kind of unprecedented. And because all these agents, and because every agent workload sort of relies on these APIs, on this public compute, really what is kind of like a public utility at this point. Like, I don't know, it's like being mad that your water systems are breaking down, but the storm drains are flooded. So bad analogy, but you get the point.
yeah, very, very true. And this is like it's interesting because like I imagine GitHub did anticipate. Funny enough, Kyle did a talk 2 years ago around the billion developers on the GitHub platform.
Yeah.
And like the plan was always that more people are going to write code because of AI, and more people are going to be shipping code and hosting and storing code. GitHub should be prepared for that. And with that being the goal. But the reality of the situation is like, man, I just did a video where I was just like spinning up 4 different Claudes at the same time while like improving web performance for a Claude platform.
Right.
Like I'm part of the problem because I spun up 4 PRs in like the matter of 30 minutes. And now I'm like reviewing those PRs using agents, and like I've got OpenClaw that also has its own secondary account, which I probably shouldn't say that out loud. I'm not sure if that's actually part of the terms and conditions if I can do that, but whatever. What I'm getting at is like the amount of load that you're giving to GitHub of all these like pushes and commits. It is like an astounding. Like if you look at just a year ago in 2025, this is normal load. I don't know what you would explain this like bump up and bump down here, but this like trajectory of like I discovered Cursor has agents to then everyone has agents, and agents deploy. I can ship agents from my post hog and agents from my Salesforce dashboard to like commit code to GitHub. Like we're now like in like runaway growth that if like if GitHub was going out to market for like an IPO or for like a reselling on the market, like they've definitely got to capture the value. And I think it's really on Microsoft to like put more resources in that camp to unblock what's happening here.
Right.
And like actually even zooming in, like you just look at 2026, if this is aligned well, like this is like unbelievable. This complete unbelievable growth that like you can't anticipate what happens next after that. So
right. There's this actually leads in really nicely to one of my reads, which I just DM'd you. It's this blog from Tangled, which is one of these kind of up and coming GitHub competitors, or I guess like you could just call it a Git hosting provider. They operate on the AT protocol, which is sort of this federated, uses these things called personal data servers and stuff, and is pretty greenfield. But I really liked this because it talks about how we essentially need federation to like solve this problem, that it can't just be, like these huge monolithic services that, sit on top of the hyperscalers, but then like one of their services go down, or it's like, there's kind of single points of failure in any of these big unfederated monolithic systems, something like this, something that they call a forge, which is basically like a federated piece of the compute platform, sounds very interesting to me. I like the idea of it. It's a good read.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I haven't even thought about this because back in the day, like you'd have your own Git server. Really back in the day, like
Yeah.
you'd spin up a Git server or TFS if you're in Microsoft, or what was it, Perforce if you're in gaming or whatever,
or Source. Oh gosh, what was it called? SourceForge. Yeah.
And like, and this is kind of how GitLab's enterprise market really got started. It was like you have your own server and you have control of it, and then you could replicate that in like the way you want. I guess technically GitHub Enterprise does do this already, but I think what we've just like trained the market of users and like adoption that GitHub is GitHub and it just works. And open source is an easier footprint to like start. And then you go to like GitHub Teams, and then it keeps working, and then you get this like GitHub Enterprise experience that becomes super expensive. So I don't know if the market's like ready to adopt the next level, or open source could even adopt enterprise in a way that could scale in a way that looks like this.
You hit on something that's really critical. That is basically at its core, GitHub is giving away a ton of compute for free. Like just look at Actions. Like the amount of action runs that you can do for free as an open source project. Heck, as a company, like we were using free action runners for our open source stuff for a good little while. Everybody does. And that's a pretty critical service that they basically just give away for free until eventually you want the bigger runners, or you go to enterprise, or you need like custom hosted runners or something, which then kind of gets a little more to like this kind of federation idea. But as a utility for open source projects, hosted runners or managed runners on GitHub is pretty incredible that they still provide that for free.
Yeah. 100%. Like I think there's a world where actually there was a note, there was an image that was running around with GitHub's I'm about to do, here's my secret sauce. I'm gonna open up X and I'm gonna use Grok.
Man.
Yeah, find me that image of GitHub downtime. Yeah, this is
the one with I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's got the line in it that's like, this is when the Microsoft acquisition happened.
Yes. Yeah, but I think the thing that I was looking at that because I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's like when I was working at GitHub. The reality of the situation, and now I'll have to. This is not it.
Programmer humor.
No, it's not quite. But basically, a lot of the downtime is actually actions, and part of that was when actions switched over to be CI/CD. And then it constantly had downtime. So I think there is a correlation between the downtime and like GitHub Actions and Microsoft tools and Azure. Because like previous to that, GitHub was on Heroku. And like to be quite frank, it kind of just worked. So obviously I had the need of like expanding, and Actions is a very different service than just having Git servers at scale. So the majority of like the Git operations kind of have worked and not had a lot of downtime and issues. A lot of the downtime issues have been like the newer features, the stuff that has been built on Azure. And this is, again, like I'm happy to have folks like correct me on this because I don't have all the information. I've just sort of lived through some of it. But yeah, I was looking at that chart, and unfortunately, I'm trying to think. I don't think I have that link handy because I don't want to open up my bookmarks. That may be dangerous. You'll see all my OnlyFans stuff.
Oh boy. Anyways,
sorry, that was actually the part that wasn't recorded.
We need the soundboard. Yeah,
the stuff that you were saying about OF and
no, that was recorded. Or no, that was live. That was live.
Okay, God, I was making a call back, and then it sounded like it just sounded just off the wall.
Too funny. There was another thing I read this week that it did have me pretty shocked about GitHub. Let me see if I can find it quick. It was the squash merge bug. And I'll send it over to you so you can share. Or can I share as well?
You can drop it in this chat. It'll be easier.
Okay. Yeah, it. Oh, now I'm not gonna be able to find it. Well, there was a great Primogen video about it, and he was talking about it. But essentially, it was a kind of wild edge case for, maybe it wasn't squash merging. Was it merge queue? Yeah,
Yeah, it was the
is.
merge queue. Yeah.
So I'll put it in this chat. Essentially, the idea, which is just bonkers, is that you would put a PR in the merge queue. It would go in and merge, but then it would revert kind of like random commits that were on the main branch to like somewhere in your history, which is just, oh my gosh. Like I can't imagine trying to go back and fix something like that. Like you basically would have to just force push like rewrite history real quick if it did a wonky deep history revert. Yeah, gross. I don't want to do that.
I think it was alerted that the window was 2,000 pull requests.
Wow.
Yeah, and it took about 3.5 hours to fix. Yeah, appreciate the transparency and they're sharing the story on what happened here. Man, I honestly, it's like, hug ops for GitHub in its current time, because it just comes down to like, just going back to Gergely's image, like you just have unprecedented, like you're having 3x the amount of like throughput of folks that's using agents, and like this, all the adoption is turning on, and like you can't combat against that with hiring, because like no one's going to overhire. Well, I guess we kind of did this in the pandemic. We did overhire quite a bit for like all remote work. But like you can't do that again. And then compute's going to be hard to get. So like, are we just capturing all the Azure servers for GitHub to basically keep the service online? Or like, let's just turn off Minecraft and like take over a bit.
Yeah. Wasn't there, and I'm sort of, I probably know too much, but GitHub was originally like a Ruby on Rails thing.
Yeah.
How much of it is still that? Like how much of it is just kind of like unscalable, unmaintainable, stuff from 12 years ago or whatever it's
yeah, so it's less of that. It's all microservices. So Ruby on Rails is like what serves the app and what serves the API. And like even like the on Rails part, like even less of that, because they've switched a lot of stuff to React, which has also shown some of the sort of colors of like the performance and stuff like that. Because like the reality is like things were working, and again, like I know too much, but like they ended up switching to React mainly on a hiring reason. Like it's easier to hire like folks who get the front end and like can make scalable software, like in user experiences, if they do React. And that was clearly, and again, I'm happy to be wrong. Someone like don't need to quote me for any articles, but like happy to be wrong on this, but like it was really around a hiring need of like it kind of saturated between them, Shopify, a handful of others, like saturated the market on Ruby and Rails developers that were willing to live in tier 1 cities, because like tier 1 cities do matter. GitHub's a very remote company, but like if you're living in Tunisia or Tunisia rather, or something like Hawaii is in their hard time zone because it's in between teams. Like you kind of need to be somewhere that's like centralized with your squad, which what we would call them internally at GitHub of your team. So it made a difference of like how you hire and how do you find the next folks. So if you want to expand, accelerate, like you got to start switching the stack. But the majority of GitHub internal was all microservices. So it bought onto a lot of that stuff. So a lot of I think Actions switched over to Go like a year ago. There's some Java stuff in there, obviously Vitess and PlanetScale and like all that sort of database stuff that exist, but they all exist within the monolith. But they're like the monolith serves the microservices, and there were microservices that were separate repos and etc. So yeah, GitHub had like just a clever way of how to like orchestrate the code base, but it was nowhere near like what what Google is with their massive monolith. It was truly like the Rails app serves the Rails app and serves like the front end of what you look at. A lot of the microservices drive, and there's a lot of like server calls and APIs and stuff like that that make that happen. And again, I didn't work on this full time. I just had privy and like was able to navigate through like trying to deploy my own stuff on their Kubernetes stack, and live through the Heroku migration to Azure as well. So yeah, kind of lived there, but yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a scale problem, and I think GitHub's just doing this in public because a lot of the users are in public shipping code, in open source.
Interesting. Yeah. It's so fascinating. Yeah, I mean, when I worked at AWS, I was surprised by the number of issues and things that kind of went pretty under the radar as far as like in the public eye. You know, GitHub really is the platform for build in the open, sort of be seen in the open. A lot of stuff that like fails in the open, whereas like some of these services at AWS would be like, well, like 5 giant enterprises are using this. They're probably not posting about it on X, nor would they. They're just going to yell at their SE and then they'll get AWS credits.
Man, I had one more read, and I think you have a couple more. But the read I have, and I'll share my screen again. Let me find the window. Oh, but that's the wrong one. This is where I should be. Is Entire. So if you did have a problem with GitHub and you needed to like ship your entire code base, they have a tool called GitSync, which is aptly named, which is Git storage at this point. So yeah, you can mirror your GitHub project to something that will hopefully have reliability. Question to you: I imagine it's a cool, great product, but how much do you trust a brand new company that's less than a year old to also have uptime? Unless
is that a cheeky?
Oh, it's like it's not meant to be a dig on Thomas or Entire, but also like.
Oh, I meant, is it a dig on our unreliability?
Oh, definitely not a dig on us.
That's fine.
And us as the user. But no, yeah, we have reliability issues, which is why we have not shipped publicly, being very candid. But no, this is more of like, there's just a reality of like managing lots of users and scale that I imagine a couple of folks through the gate will probably have a great time with Entire, but like if 100,000 folks join Entire, does Entire have the same problem that GitHub has? Or if like all my agents ship to Entire, and I think it's the same deal for these guys we've talked about previously, Code.Storage,
right?
Which they basically same deal, GitSync. So being able to have like another place, another Git server for you to like store your code and interact with it.
I don't know. I do think that you get a little bit of the benefit of getting to move fast, do the startup thing, like getting to like execute really quickly on like, okay, this is going to be like, the latest and greatest on like whatever. Like some of the stuff we recently shipped uses DuckDB, which is kind of the bleeding edge today on columnar open source fast databases. And even in the DuckDB documentation, they say that like we're standing on the backs of giants, and there's like all this work from the last 5-10 plus years, and like a lot of companies just don't get the benefit of being able to like make an architectural decision that early that's going to impact the core foundations of the bedrock of the whole platform in the company that often. Like I forget who said this, but maybe it was like a Chamath quote or something, but companies get like just a few chances at like really big foundational decisions. And I think that's, hopefully, with us, like we get to move fast, be agile, make those decisions, make them well. So to answer your question, I would say yes. Like if it works and it's shipped, why not?
I wonder if like, here's a question, open source ready, the podcast asking, like, do we really need, like, are we moving to a world where do we need like a centralized place that everyone stores their open source repos on? Like, can we now have some fragmentation of like, actually everything that's vibe coded goes the Entire, and like we just have a sandbox there, like we just make sure that those services stay up and they just work, and we choose open mainly because it's easier to work with contractors and outside contributors. I don't know what contributors are, but contributors. But
it's a good question.
Do you need the social features of GitHub anymore if all the social interactions are coming from OpenClaw or random agents?
Did we ever need the social features? Like,
I mean, that's a good question as well. Like, that is one thing that again,
because to be clear, like I would say that something like the Linux kernel is, I mean, there's a Git server, you can go browse the code. Actually, better yet, Google quick the Go source code, which is in Google's weird internal. It's disgusting. Not the GitHub one. That's the mirror. You got to go down to.
Is it Go Google source?
I think it's that one. Yeah, just go into one of these packages. I mean, this is disgusting, right? Like nobody wants this, and like to be able to contribute to this, you're like, you're a Go insider essentially. This, oh man, this is giving me flashbacks. This is basically exactly what AWS's internal Go thing also looks like. And like you get the sign in button, you get the like, you know, code browsing stuff. I think this might even have like issues in pull requests or whatever their equivalent of it is. But I don't know. The social features to me were always kind of just fine beyond like, well, would you put issues like public issues and public pull requests as like social things?
I would say, yeah. I mean, they're like they're basically forums.
Yeah, that's true.
Email threads. Like each issue, each PR is basically email thread. And I know that because we actually got to convert over like the Eclipse team, and they had a lot of needs, like converting their usage of email threads to GitHub. Which we like addressed. Was part of that sort of like squad to help that out. But yeah, those, I mean, social features, like be able to like, if I find like Vite server broken GitHub, I do find the value of like being able to discover, hey, someone else have this issue. And I definitely like a ton of times my bacon's been saved of like, oh yeah, someone else reported this like 6 months ago. It's a known problem. Here's like 6 months of back and forths of like what everyone's tried. And I don't have to go down the same path of like, oh yeah, I'm going to try the same thing everyone else tried. I'm just going to read and find that. So honestly, I feel like I think software is better off by having stuff that's actually indexed and searchable, that we don't have to go like jump on a call with everyone or jump in like a, what do you call it? I'm blanking on the chat IRC channels, to then like,
IRC was great.
It was great, but also scary.
It was also terrible. Yeah,
terrible, scary, but also like, and some of the like some of the like pre GitHub, like I'd jump in there and be like, hey, I've got a question, not knowing how to interact with like the community.
Yeah, people would just tell you to leave.
Yeah, and like just didn't really know how to interact or like what the best practices was. I feel like Stack Overflow, same deal. Like I don't know how to interact with this place. Like I just trying to find a solution to a problem. But I think I personally am better off by having a place that's like I can navigate and has like best practices in GitHub. It's like part of the reason why I joined the work at GitHub is that I could easily find, I could easily navigate. At my earliest career, like my first job, I didn't know how to use GitHub issues because we didn't use GitHub issues. We ended up using, I think we were all on Bitbucket basically. And we didn't use issues because we used Jira at the time. So then it was like, oh, Jira is the stuff that the PMs touch. Engineers just ship code and it like shows up in Jira. And then we had an IT manager that basically connected all the dots and made sure that our PRs, which is quite crazy because like that's just like a GitHub action or like a webhook or automation that's just like trivial today. But we had physically had a person in a closet that kept the servers up and also made sure Jira tickets were assigned to you, pull requests or diffs.
Yeah. This was something we worked on at OpenSauce around like the vibe of a project or a repo or an org or whatever. Like being able to show up to the issues or the pull requests and get a pretty good idea of like, you know, what the vibe of the neighborhood is, I think was something I definitely resonated with. Talking about IRC actually I just like flash back to some trauma of, you know, being like confused and then people being like, this guy sucks. Get out of this IRC room, dude. And you're like, oh, I just need help. But mostly the social features, it seems on GitHub were crafted to try to be helpful, I guess. I don't know. Or collaborate, the collaborative environment, right?
Yeah. Speaking of this guy sucks, you had a read.
Oh, what a transition. Yeah. So I think this was the other big news from the last week and a half, since we didn't stream last week. Tim Cook stepping down, or I guess stepping into fun retirement of the executive chairman, and John Ternus to become the Apple CEO, who was monumental in bringing us the M series MacBooks, That whole transition of Apple Silicon and getting away from Intel, which, if you had to look back on Tim Cook's whole tenure, I think that's definitely one of the bright stars, is the bet on hardware. And one of the things I was reading was that Apple is really a hardware company. Like, and I think that's more clear than ever. Like, their software sucks. It's fine. And I think some people really love it and all those things, but just like some of these rough edges that, oh my gosh, like the keyboard on the iPhone on, whatever this most recent iOS is, iOS 26, it's very bad. Some of the integrations just don't work very well. And yet they've sort of tried to go more and more into that business of doing like SaaS stuff. So maybe the verdict is still out on all the deeply integrated SaaS that they're trying to do. But hardware, amazing. I think this is such a good bet, continuing to lean into hardware and John Ternus. I think this also says something about they're probably going to continue to do nothing in AI, if not even less, or maybe just honestly get rid of Siri. Or
they have the deal with Google now with their
models. That's right. I did see that.
Not too like Safari, and like Safari's still powered by Google search.
Yeah.
So it seems very, very similar.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense. Like they were never really in the whole arena of sniping up people to build and I guess this was maybe circa, I don't know, 2022, 2023, right? Where all these people who had frontier AI research, chops were getting acquired or acqui-hired for, many X millions of dollars a year or whatever. I think Andrew Wang was one of the bigger ones from Scale AI to Meta. And now works with GitHub former CEO
Nat Friedman at Meta.
Yeah.
Superintelligence
Lab. Yeah. So yeah, I find this announcement very interesting. I think John Ternus will be great. Pretty clear there's going to be some more hardware, probably, obviously, or leaning more into that hardware bet. Yeah. What do you think, Brian? Are you an Apple guy?
I don't know if I'm an Apple guy. I have an Apple Watch and a phone and a MacBook.
Sure.
And an iPad. But most of those are severely out of date. I'm definitely not a buy a new thing every year person, or even every other year.
You're not a fanboy.
Yeah, my phone's like a 15. It's like 2 versions old, and I tend to I keep it going until the screen cracks. So yeah, no reason to upgrade. Actually, I do have a reason to upgrade because my charging point doesn't work anymore. So I can only charge through the magnetic whatever that's called.
Oh, really?
Charging.
Oh, wow. What a bummer.
It's actually super annoying because I can't use an external mic or any sort of peripherals or anything like that for that reason. So I'm contemplating, because I want to start doing on the go content, and I need to have a mic connected. So I'll probably upgrade. But I guess what I'm getting at is I think Apple had inertia. I had 100% a fanboy 15 years ago when I was doing bedroom studio musician stuff.
Right.
And GarageBand came out, and I was all bought in. But I frankly most of my MacBooks come through work. I don't think I've bought a MacBook in 12 years. I guess I did buy a Mac Mini, but that's not for OpenClaw, for homework for the kids.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Well, speaking of hardware, this actually takes me to my other read, which is
exciting.
The new Framework Laptop 13 Pro that they just announced. And almost ironically, they're leaning more into Intel, and this is going to be one of the first prosumer laptops with Intel's new, what is this called? I forget.
The Core Ultra Series 3.
Core Ultra Series 3 processors, which is actually really fascinating technology, and is basically what gives them, the 20 plus hours of battery life. So essentially it leans into some interesting technology with low voltage transistors, et cetera, electrical engineering, all that stuff. But yeah, if anybody, I don't know if this is a good bet to make or a good prediction to make, but if anybody's going to give Apple a run for their money, at least for developers' hearts and minds, it could be Framework. And I think they know this. I think they know that they're wildly popular with developers, and that giving developers basically this, to me, looks like the ThinkPad. And the ThinkPad X Carbons, or whatever the Carbon ones, were really great up until 8 years ago or something. Like the most, like there was like a legendary tier of ThinkPads that were just like really well supported for Linux, were super, super solid, had incredible battery life, were light, were powerful. They just haven't kept up. So yeah, I've pre-ordered one. I'm excited. It was almost perfect timing that my MacBook would die that I could then pre-order this.
And when does it come off the boat?
It comes off the boat in July. So
yeah, got some time.
Linux desktop for now.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is very exciting. Some of the memes from the announcements were, you know, the framework fanboys are very excited for a potential printer, which sounds nuts. But I guess if anybody's going to make like a Linux powered super user printer, sure, maybe it'd be framework, but
yeah,
it could just be a meme.
I will say that I just switched over my desktop over to Ubuntu, and like call me impressed. Last time I touched Ubuntu was like maybe like 2009, 2010. Wow. Super early, like in my trajectory of like even touching Linux, but also like my only interaction with Linux was Ubuntu, and then I just had all my assumption was based on that experience. But I will say like a lot of things just work out of the box for Ubuntu. I know you mentioned earlier today you were on Catchy OS. Yeah. I don't know if I want to go, like I'll probably have like a second, I've got a second PC that's sitting in a corner. I might throw something new on. But I think Linux has come a long way. And like, I think if you haven't tried Linux recently, it's definitely worth like throwing a new drive in the machine and just running Linux on a second drive or something.
Yeah. I think especially, I mean, super plus one to everything you just said. I think especially Linux desktops, you know, GNOME and Cinnamon, and I'm on Plasma right now, which it all like works relatively well. Like I think video and audio still remain probably the two biggest like just behemoths to go and tackle. But we've talked about this before, like gaming on Linux has come a really long way thanks to Steam and a lot of the investment there. Audio video stuff with new Pulse Audio has come a really long way. Like this is streaming through my OBS virtual camera on this like 4K.
What I was actually looking into is you can actually run SteamOS specifically on your desktop as well.
Yeah, it's just Arch.
Yeah. So I was actually looking into that because like I've got I used to live stream, so I have a collection of old live streaming PCs for reasons. One that's actually pretty beat up and old. Contemplating putting SteamOS on it because that's the only thing I use it for is like playing Tomb Raider with the kids or like this a random platformer. But if I like hook that up and threw up on the living room TV, it'd be a nice gaming device that I could just keep relevant and working.
Yeah. I think that's Steam's, or I guess I think that's Valve's plan with the Steam machine that they're planning. Granted, RAM prices and SSD prices and everything prices with computers have gone way up, so they haven't like announced a release date yet. But yeah, just like a good alternative with some like good first-ish party supported hardware and software. Get the Steam machine, or you just do what you just talked about, and like you have some hardware sitting around, or you want to go build a like top tier performance gaming PC that can sit in the living room, throw SteamOS on it, and peripherals just work. That's another thing that like peripherals almost used to never work. Like I man, like a controller, no way. Even keyboards and mice, like good luck finding the drivers that would be Linux supported. Man, things have come a long way, and it makes me very.
And you know what I've done? I tend to run PyCoder, and then I was using Kimi 2.6 to basically to set up my machine. So I have been using Nix a ton, just a Nix shell. So I'll just like go find if there's a Nix package, and if not, go apt install, whatever. But mostly finding drivers have all been command line driven. And that was also the pain point of like going through a bunch of forums and like newsletters and like finding out like all the pain point of like trying to find the thing that works. It kind of cut the time of like setup to your desktop.
Right.
By a ton, just by having a harness that you could run live. So yeah, that's totally the other half of it is like PyCoder on a Linux machine with local models or even like cloud models. It's actually been super useful.
Yeah. Huge shout out to Pi. I love it. My last read was also hardware related, which also gaming related. I guess it all comes together. Is this fun story where somebody is this open source project on GitHub there, that last link, where he can basically like transmorph PS5 into a Linux box. And then I think what they actually do is I do think they put SteamOS on there.
Oh, really?
And it's quite beefy hardware. Like a PS5 is good stuff. So it can run, it can run quite a bit. But this is definitely outside of the terms of use. And I love it.
That is amazing. The PS5 fat console.
Yep. It's kind of a hilarious legacy of people like bootloading and breaking PlayStations. Who is this? GeoHotz. Yeah, he was like one of the first to jailbreak a PS3 back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, I don't know if I'd spend the money on a PS5, which has gone up $150 and put Linux on it. I'd rather go the path of like old desktop PC, but someone's done it, and it's GPL licensed for whatever reason.
And that is strange. I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe because
something
Linux.
Maybe it absolves them of like, no, it's not MIT. It's not as is. This is who knows?
Yeah.
Or they copy pasted
something here too as well.
Oh, that's probably why. A lot of oh gosh, what's the word? A lot of like core hypervisor technology is like VMware stuff, and it's like out there and like it's been kind of mangled together from like a licensing perspective. There was a thing I think Mitchell talked about once where he's like for Ghosty about like some emulation stuff, or maybe it was VM stuff, being like, no, I can't even like look at an issue that maybe has like copyleft stuff that, you vibe coded in, because then it's just going to like, totally copyleft. But you know what? Let's not end the stream talking about open source licensing, our favorite topic.
Everything leads to licenses, to be quite honest. And I was just noticing 10 hours ago that thing was first commit. So absolutely amazing that The Verge caught that, and it's already an article today.
I think it went viral on Hacker News. My lights.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, folks, this will end our stream. This is Open Source Ready Live. We do have a podcast that we have shows go out every other week. So this last week we had, or this yesterday, or this morning. Wait, was it yesterday? Anyway, Ober Jesse.
I don't know. Time makes no sense.
Creator of Superpowers was our last guest. So talking about how to leverage superpowers in your Claude code and plus. You'd actually run superpowers in PyCoder as well. It's kind of janky, but it works. And then we have Substack. So find us on Substack, Open Source Ready. And with that being said, stay ready.
Stay ready. We'll see you, Brian.